Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Okay, well, now we've done our obligatory anime sidebar and a sideways reference to Critical Role starring Matt Mercer, so...
Yeah, someone make an EHR bingo card.
Yeah, we can move right along to the real important issues. Welcome to every...
Real important issues.
Yeah, that was said in parentheses, in quotation marks.
Okay, sorry.
This is podcast. Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally Goodger.
And this is Macathon. Boys in the house.
Boys in the open air.
Boys in the tents. Boys in the
there
wagons.
Are some boys in the wagons. Matt, Oliver, Noal counts as a boy, I guess.
Yeah, as usual, I find that if I take a step back and sort of remove all the, nuances of Robert Jordan's writing, then I find a situation to be very interesting and amusing. The fact that they're in a circus, the fact that they all have these sort of, sitcom-like rooming situations, Matt is with Bael, Domon, and Edgianan in a wagon. Julian and Amathera just have Oliver with them constantly. Presumably Thom and Noal are rooming together,
The real love story.
It's all just very funny. Tuon and Seleucia are with Satalanon, famously anti-Seanchan, if only she would stick to that.
Yeah.
She doesn't quite hold the line as much as we would like her
if
to.
Only she assassinated Tuon and Seleucia and be like, I don't know what happened, actually.
Yeah, there are so many different ways this could have gone. So many people could have killed Tuon.
Cowardly.
I know. What would it have done, though, to... I was thinking about this, because I was like, if Matt actually wanted to destabilize the Seanchan Empire on a significant level, would murdering the daughter of the Nine Moons have done it, Especially because we know, with the benefit of foresight, that pretty much the entire Seanchan government over in the Empire is about to get murdered.
Yeah,
by dark friends, basically.
Yeah, Semiraj's plot, right?
Yeah, Semiraj's plot is to destabilize the Seanchan continent, which, as dark friend plots go, I'm kind of like, sure.
Yeah, I'm on board.
Yeah, no skin off my back watching the downfall of that particular empire.
Yeah, take it on the run, baby.
You're telling me that Semiraj, the most evil woman alive, by most people's definitions, was the one who had to do it? It couldn't have been, say, one of our protagonists?
No, because this book is inherently pro-Empire. So we are supposed to see what Semiraj does as a bad thing, because Semiraj is a bad person.
I don't know if they're even and now dark friends are in charge over in the Seanchan Empire. And I'm like, even if dark friends are now in charge of the Seanchan government, that can't be the case for long, because dark friends are historically the least competent people in the series.
Yeah, I also find it kind of, unbelievable that there is enough dark friend manpower to truly, go over there and overthrow the entire government and keep it stable. We just have not been led to believe thus far that they have that type of manpower.
I mean, I don't know, as we referenced last episode, 85% of the White Tower is Black Asha.
That's true. Maybe it's just all of the Black Asha are time to overthrow the Seanchan. I don't know. It just, you're
Maybe
right.
That's what Alviren has been doing with traveling. She's mysteriously missing.
And it's true, they are deeply incompetent, sort of like a slapstick comedy level of incompetence. So, Yeah, it's a very confusing plot, and it also is one of those things that, like, it doesn't seem to really destabilize anything. Especially because, like, Shandar, or whatever it's called, is so far removed from the Seanchan invasion that, like, over here they seem to just be operating as usual.
Complete, like, ancillaries of the Empire. Which sort of brings us to one of the things Matt says as he starts this chapter, which is that he's sort of surveying the wreckage of what happened a week ago when he and the others escaped, but also he let the captured Seafolk Windfinders loose and started a Seafolk rebellion. But he is, like, looking at all the boats in the harbor and notes that there's not enough boats for the Seanchan to return. And Edgianan, with manufactured timing, is like, well, of course, because they don't need to return. That's not the intention to return. I mean, this is the return. They have returned here. And sort of not having a retreat, a path of retreat, this isn't said, but it is implied. The fact that the Seanchan no longer have a path of retreat means that they are firmly embedded in this continent. The only way to get rid of them is to kill them all. Which Matt also says something demoralizing like that a little bit later. Of course, the Seanchan can be embedded in the continent without having any power.
Yeah.
And no one seems to really take that into consideration as a serious possibility, which goes more towards Robert Jordan's sort of project of, I mean, we call him imperialist and say that he is promoting empire, which he definitely is, but I think something he is also promoting with his ultimate agenda of having the Seanchan and the rest of the continent just sort of stay out of each other's business is the idea that everyone should just be completely neutral and stay out of each other's affairs, which is a very Southerner, United States Southerner thing to think. If you don't like it, I can secede from the government, etc., etc.
Yeah.
But even just, like, the way he talks about how, as Matt and Edgianan are walking back to the circus, Matt says something like, yeah, most people don't care about the Seanchan invasion because, you know, who is in power in the government is not relevant to them. What is relevant is whether the weather is good enough for their crops, you know? Yeah. And from a realistic standpoint, that is true, but that's also a deeply nihilistic thing to say. Even farmers who are, and very poor people, can be concerned with the ideals in the seat of government, you know? Yeah. You can be concerned that your government promotes and uses slavery.
Yeah, it's also, like, a very, like, I don't mean to always draw, like, real-world, real-time parallels, but, like, it's such an elitist thing to say that, like, people in rural communities do not have, like, active involvement in politics and, like, thoughts about politics and important things to say about what's happening in the places that they live. Like, this idea that only the people in power are concerned with what's happening in the seat of power, and this, like, circular thinking is really screwed up and incorrect.
Yeah, and it is, like, it discredits poor people and everyone who isn't the intellectual elite. It sort of makes a case for, like, people will just let anything happen because people aren't ruled by their consciences, which is not the case at all.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's all just pretty depressing, and that's sort of the overall vibe that we constantly get with Matt and the Seanchan, because, of course, what we're getting into now is Matt, making peace with the Seanchan as they are represented by Tuon, who's meant to be his future wife, and there's a particular line that I just wanted to call attention to. He says something basically about how, he's powerless to do anything against the Seanchan invasion, so, the most he can do is just sort of make peace with it. I truly can't remember. I'm sure I'll find it later and be very annoyed. But that's sort of the stance that Robert Jordan takes toward Matt's whole relationship with Matt and Tuon, is that Matt is never going to be able to do anything to change Tuon or convince her of any other, I don't know, set of ethics. And so he's just sort of coming at this already from a position of defeat. Mm-hmm. Like, and we, the reader, are not supposed to believe that anything about Tuon is going to be changed. We just have to accept her as she is.
Yep.
Which, of course, is very defeating, and while I don't think that the point of any romance should be changing one's partner, but then again, I don't think this should be a romance either, and I don't think this should be coming at an angle of romance first. Mm-hmm. If there has to be a romance, it should be tangential to them creating a political relationship.
Yep.
Which should be based on the idea of Matt changing her mind.
Yeah.
Like, this is such an opportunity here. If you're not going to murder the daughter of the Nine Moons, thereby destabilizing the fascist empire that has invaded the continent, the least you can do is try and set her up to be someone who will change things in the empire that has invaded your continent. But no, you just are going to romance her.
Yeah.
So, that's why we're going to have a hard time with Matt throughout.
Yeah.
And this storyline generally.
Yeah. Yeah, just, like, acceptance is really hard to swallow. And as we've talked about, just, like, doesn't really fit with Matt's character. Matt is a character who tends to fight against the current. He's never, like, I don't know. Especially when it comes to, like, nobility and people in charge. He's never been like, well, things just are the way they are. Like, I don't know. It just sits all so badly. And it just feels so suffocating for Matt to be in this situation and be like, well, there's literally nothing I can do about it. And it gets to the point where it's like, there's nothing Matt wants to do about it.
Yeah, there are things you could do about it. You just aren't doing them.
Yeah, Matt just, like...
It's not helplessness, it's complacence.
Yes, it's complacence and complicitness. Complicitness? Sure.
Complicity?
Complicity? Matt is complacent and Matt is complicit when it comes to Tuon's behaviors and Tuon's position in the Seanchan Empire. It gets to the point where he's so infatuated with her, which is also really hard to buy because Tuon does not have, like, a good personality. That he just is honestly really selfish.
Then again, who in the Wheel of Time has a good personality?
You know what? You got me there. I would say Darlin.
Darlin! My beloved Dobrain. Only minor characters have good personalities.
Every major character has bad personality disease.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Eturald and Bashir. My beloveds.
Yeah, so Matt just is, like, he's honestly acting very selfishly in regards to his, love and eventually lust for Tuon. So.
Yeah. Yikes.
It's really gross, and it's really hard to read. End of comment.
End of tangent. We pick up with, as I think I mentioned, Matt is just sort of sitting by this river that, you know, leads out to sea, to the harbor, so he has a pretty good view of the harbor, and he is considering the harbor and the wreckage that has been left by this uprising. Noal is with him. Matt is like, Noal is such a weird guy, he just came along without being invited, so he could, I don't know, catch fish or something.
Yeah, Noal's a freak, and
he's like
it.
Wading in the icy river, you know, and he's like, it's fucking cold, Matt, we should go back. And Matt's like, you're the one who got in the river.
No one told you to get in the river, Noal.
Yeah. Jesus.
I love him.
Yeah, Matt has a side comment about how he suspects Noal is very, very lonely and needs a lot of company, which is surely true based on what little we know about Noal / Jane Farstrider and his history. But Matt is concerned and spends quite a few pages sort of calculating the arithmetic of gains and losses based on the Sea Folk invasion. Uprising. You know, he's trying to figure out how many ships full of Sea Folk might have escaped, how many people might have been recaptured, how many people might have been murdered and or executed by the state. We can probably assume, because it's Matt, that he would have been interested in and concerned with this anyway. But he feels a particular level of responsibility for it because he was the one who let the Sea Folk out. And he never is like, wow, I sure regret that, I shouldn't have done it. He affirms multiple times that that was the only thing he could have done and still feel good about himself and good about anything. Which, again, that's the Matt we're familiar with.
Right.
But I don't know, he is just sort of weighted down by these things I think that would trouble and disturb anyone, and luckily he isn't making it too gendered in this particular aside. He will later have some of the Two Rivers gendered nonsense about whether the people you kill or get killed are women or men, but he is thinking broad scale, as a general would. And at some point in here, he also flashes back to their actual departure from Abu Dar. Like, you know, it was pouring rain, they were all in this little parade in the tunnel leading out through the wall, having their papers inspected. It's very scary, because he has Tuon wrapped in a tapestry across his horse, which is like, I don't know, that sucks. You couldn't have thought of a better...
Yeah, like, there's no better place you could have put her.
What are you going to do if someone's like, why are you carrying a random tapestry
across the back of your horse?
A very fancy tapestry.
You weirdo.
Yeah, so who knows what that's about. But sort of right, you know, there's no real crescendo there. There's not like someone's like, wait, look at the seals on these. They're not absolutely perfect like Thom Merrilin would have made them.
Yes.
There just is a moment suddenly where there are explosions back in the city and big things, and everyone just takes off. Which Matt is like, oh, that's sooner than I wanted things to kick off, but still good timing for us. Although then I was kind of like, aren't we getting lost a little bit in the idea that Beslan was also supposed to start a bunch of fires in the city?
Yeah.
Was that just like not happening because of the rain? What? We just aren't given any explanation for it.
I don't know.
It seems to be a subplot that Robert Jordan forgot.
Beslan is forgettable, so
He sure is.
that's understandable, Robert.
Yeah. Anyway, Edgianan comes up to Matt and Noal and is like, you shouldn't have left. I told everyone not to leave the camp. And Matt's like, well, screw that. Edgianan is in disguise, as is everyone. For people like Matt, that just involves wearing less fancy clothes. For Edgianan, she like had to shave her head, and now she's wearing a wig.
Yeah.
And different clothes, and various people have had to change their haircuts, and we get little asides about that all the time. Edgianan is like constantly checking her wig, which Matt is like, it's because she's all concerned about Seanchan propriety, you know, she doesn't want anyone to mistake her for the blood. But I'm like, if I was wearing a wig, I would also be constantly worried about
I'd be
my
like,
wig.
is it in place?
I know, even if I have just a normal hair cut, I'm like, hello. So, Matt.
Especially because it sounds like it's just like a wig that she puts on her bald head. She doesn't have it like, you know, glued down or anything. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge.
She just has it. It could like go askew in a strong wind, it seems like.
So, it's not like professional level.
Jeez.
It's just like a mop of hair.
Where did they even get a wig?
I think Valan Luca just has like a chest of wigs.
He's like, ta-da! Here are all my disguises.
Valan Luca would have a disguised chest.
Yeah, he would. Anyway, Edgianan fetches Matt and Noal, and they walk back to the camp. It's a pretty short walk, and they're also like right outside the city. Like they pass the like horse racing circuit where we started off, the Crown of Swords Matt points of view, where Oliver was
jockeying his way to victory.
Yeah. And Matt spotted that one dark friend lady who then led him to the White Cloak dark friend, which was a subplot that we totally forgot, by the way. Not we, I mean like Robert Jordan.
Yeah, the royal we.
Yeah, just like that White Cloak guy.
Yeah.
Being an evil dark friend in the city was such a big deal in Crown of Swords, and then immediately wasn't. We don't know if he got killed by the Seanchan. We don't know if he disappeared. We don't know if he's still in the city. Carradine?
Yeah. Who knows?
Who knows, man?
Maybe that's the last we'll ever see of him.
I do not think we are that lucky. I think he escaped somehow, but I truly think that's another thing Robert Jordan just forgot.
He was like, I need a white... Oh! I have a white cloak to put back on the board.
Yeah, I left that guy. in Abu Dar and just sort of hoped everyone would forget about him. And we were like, we did.
We did, Robert.
Because that was a stupid subplot to begin with.
I had totally forgotten.
Anyway, Matt and Aegyanan are pretending to be lovers in the nighttime. I don't know why they specifically are pretending to be lovers. Like, I don't know why it couldn't be, like, Aegyanan and Doman, and Matt could be a servant, too. Maybe because Matt had already sort of established himself at the circus.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it's a contrived thing just for Robert Jordan to play it off for laughs about how much they currently hate each other and have to pretend to be fond of one another.
Yeah,
so.
Which I don't believe anyone would buy. Neither of them is very good performers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's sort of, they have to walk arm in arm around while Noal is just capering around behind them with his...
clicking his heels.
String of fish.
Yeah. He's like, I'm gonna make you fish stew.
He's like, I'm gonna make you spicy fish stew so you forget all about your leg pain. And Matt's like, because my tongue will be on fire? Is that the point?
Yes, misdirection. The magician's first rule.
The prestige!
I love Noal so much. The chaotic energy that man just sort of runs around with.
I know, at one point he just disappears in this chapter, and we have no idea where he went, and I don't believe we're ever given an explanation.
I love him.
He's so excellent.
Yeah, just really big chaotic gremlin energy.
So weird. Anyway, so part of their whole elaborate aliases, so Matt is portraying himself, at least amongst the circus folk, because he's been there before. Everyone would know him and would know that he was with Tylan. So the story is that Matt started hooking up with this other noblewoman, this Seanchan noblewoman, and they decided to run away together. So the prestige. They also have made it clear that Aegyanan is the one with money, which of course is not true. Matt is the one who's payrolling this. Yeah. Bankrolling this whole enterprise. And I think last book kept being like, what is it? Matt keeps referencing what he has over Valan Luca and how he's gonna make Valan Luca listen to him. And apparently it's just that Matt has a fuck ton of money. I don't know why it was made to be some, like, ominous blackmailing thing, but it's just Matt's like, I will pay Valan Luca so much money.
Yeah. He has this, like, hilarious aside about how, like, for enough money, Valan Luca would kidnap the Dark One.
Yeah.
And, like...
He would, too. I love that man.
He's, speaking of chaotic gremlins.
He is, at one point he does a little dance. Yeah. He's so excited that they're gonna leave Abu Dar.
Yeah. Valan Luca is both the most insufferable man alive and my favorite character.
He's such a nutcase. He's proof that you can make an objectively hateable character still actually be fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
It is so funny.
Valan
it does
Luca.
make it sound like Matt has, like, Valan Luca's wife hidden in a closet somewhere or something. And it's just like, no, I will give him a lot of money.
Give him so much money.
And Valan Luca will be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You can bring 97 people into my circus.
A bunch of Aes Sedai, a bunch of runaway Aes Sedai.
Yeah,
you have to. I wish that Matt would give us numbers.
Yeah.
Given I don't understand the currency really in Wheelie Time World, but I wish we had, like, a solid... real world estimate. Like, is he paying him millions of dollars?
Is it like $10 million?
I have to believe it is.
Oh, Valan Luca, you absolute madman.
Anyway, so Luca knows all the real details, He knows he has the Daughter of the Nine Moons stashed in one of his wagons. But everyone else in the circus has been given this story about Matt and Aegyanan. So they get back to the circus. Matt's like, yeah, it's super slow. No one's spending money on the circuses, and no one has in a while. Plus, it seems to be kind of early morning, or, like 10 a.m.-ish. And they get back, and there's just a couple of bouncers, but also the circus strongman, Petra, who Matt describes as not quite as tall as him, but twice as wide, which I'm like, fuck yeah,
Petra. It's a big man.
He bends horseshoes.
I think it's...
as part of his act.
Yeah. Strong men are fun characters.
I know, that's so interesting. And he has a wife, Clarine, I think.
Who trains little dogs.
To
do little tricks.
Yeah, they're the only heterosexual couple I care about in this.
Yeah, their dream is to open an inn one day.
And that sounds lovely and idyllic. I hope they survived the last battle.
Me too. And them and all of their little dogs can open an inn.
They're like, we're the buffest man alive. His cute wife. And their 18 small dachshunds.
I hope at this inn, the dogs serve the drinks.
Stop. It's a bunch of little wiener dogs in little aprons.
Yeah, and they like have a little apparatus.
And they all can balance the trays of drinks on their noses.
Their nose.
Wow, that would make a lot of money. I'll say that.
I'd go. It'd be so fun.
I mean, even if they weren't serving the drinks, even if it was just like the equivalent of a cat cafe, but it's a wiener dog cafe.
Hell yeah, I would go.
I don't know if they're really wiener dogs. I just like
I like to assume.
Wiener dogs. I feel like I've seen that in circuses.
Yeah, I always see like wiener dogs are like little Jack Russell Terriers or something like that. Never.
Anyway, Petra and Chlorine are like, oh, hey, we're just here to warn you that there are some Seanchan in. There's like a small squad of Seanchan in the circus. They're talking to Val and Luca, and everyone's like, oh shit, and I've mostly been ignoring it up until this point, but the sort of overtone of these two chapters is that Matt and Edgianen are both trying to be the leaders of their particular their strange little outfit, and Edgianen points out that won't work very well. There can't be two captains on the same ship. And from Edgianen's point of view, it makes sense that she would be in charge because she has leadership experience and Matt does not. She does not know that much about Matt. And also in Edgianen's defense, Matt has not told her any of the reality of, Matt has not presented her with his resume. In Matt's defense, would Edgianen believe him?
No.
Probably not. So there's not really a good solution to this particular quandary.
It's funny though, because are none of the Band of the Red Hand guys
Yeah, they are with them, but to Edgianen, they might as well just be 4 random bodyguard type guys.
So she's gonna talk to Harnan.
Yeah.
And be like, what's your deal? And be like, I would follow Matt into hell.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, maybe that's worth investigating.
And she'd be like, men are all stupid, because Robert Jordan is insane.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not any way to redeem Edgianen because she's in the position of being a woman in Robert Jordan's world, so
yeah,
she won't act rationally no matter what.
This section, these two chapters are really annoying. The dynamics between all the characters are really annoying. But, what's really upsetting, Matt is very, very sexist in these two chapters. He says some really horrific things about women and about Edgianen, and he talks about how, Edgianen is so muscular and her body is not soft and feminine, and that's so repulsive to him. Just, really awful things. And it's really upsetting because Robert Jordan positions it as though Edgianen's crime is being a horrible woman, not being a horrible person who believes in the institution of slavery.
Which we definitely, if we had any feelings of sympathy for Edgianen beforehand, they have been murdered brutally by her absolutely rancid little paragraph about how she has a daemon, and her daemon is named such and such, and her daemon likes dog treats and walks in the park, and blah, 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 blah. Edgianen misses her terribly, talking about her the entire time like she's a beloved lapdog.
Yeah.
Truly horrific shit.
Yeah.
And why anyone, I mean Noal in the background, is like, doo-ba-doo-ba-doo.
Noal pulls out a gun.
But, so we don't have much sympathy here for Edgianen either, but it's because Edgianen is one of the Seanchan and is not doing a lot to further the cause.
Yeah.
Not because Edgianen is some sort of, I don't know, gender traitor for being too mean and not attractive enough for Matt.
Yeah, it's really annoying that that's what Matt keeps talking about. He's like, Bail Daemon must not have eyes. She's the most miserable, ugly woman I've ever laid
a shrew.
my eyes upon. Yeah, tame this shrew. And it's like, dear God, Matt, she literally has said truly some of the most rancid things. And earlier he's like, I'm worried that all the Daemon got killed or punished. And she's like, they're way too valuable for that. They're such valuable property. And it's like, ew. Don't you have a bigger beef with her than she doesn't have nice hips. What's happening?
I know, I'm like, Matt, you don't have a leg to stand on when it comes to casting aspersions on other people's love lives.
Yeah.
You fall in love with the Empress. Mm-hmm. So, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's too much to ask for Matt to judge Seanchan for their ethics.
Yeah, clearly he doesn't give a shit about that.
It really, like, it's so annoying because obviously Edgianan is, I've got a lot of beef with her, but I feel very annoyed for her in this moment that it's like she is judged by her gender, not by her actions.
Yeah, there's plenty to hate about Edgianan. The fact that she's a woman isn't one of them.
Yeah.
The fact that she's not an attractive woman. Whatever.
Not attractive by Matt's standards.
Yeah, who knows? She might be a total smoke show by our standards.
But
in
Matt,
fact, she probably is, since she's buff.
She's super buff, spent her time on the ocean, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just really obnoxious, but...
Yeah, and all this is just meant to be comedy for us. So, neither Edgianan nor Matt comes out of this situation looking great.
Yeah.
But they both go to sort of inspect, like, you know, walk by Luca's scouted out, do some recon of the Seanchan who are here in the circus. Edgianan being like, yeah, of course, what are the chances that I would know any of them? And of course, then she does happen to know one
famous
of them.
last words.
Yeah, of course. They run into Bail Damon and one of the warders who are also sort of watching this.
Blarick.
Infamous
Our favorite.
Blarick. Yeah, Blarick. But, like, right as they're walking up, the Seanchan leave. Without noticing them or saying anything, you know, danger past. And Luca comes out of his wagon and is like, everyone calm down, they just wanted to look at the horse permits. Or whatever.
Yeah.
And he rants and raves at Matt about how he should have been gone 6 days ago and what blah, 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 blah. They could just take the horses. No amount of money is worth this. And Matt's like, calm down. I was going to say once Thom gets back, we should leave. And Val and Luca's like, yes! Fuck yeah! Starts banging on doors to wake up circus folk.
Let's go, lesbians, let's go!
Let's go, lesbians, let's go!
That's Val and Luca.
Yep, that's Val and Luca. Edgianan is mad, by the way, because Thom went into the city, which, I mean, I have no judgment call to make there. That's sort of what Thom does for a living, is go into places he shouldn't. But also, you did just escape.
Yeah, Edgianan is like, I said nobody was supposed to leave. And Matt's like, Thom does not answer to God nor King, nor you.
Thom killed 2 kings, Maryland, is not going to take...
Your
orders.
Yeah, this is like, you just gotta let Thom do whatever he's gonna do.
We just gotta hope for the best with old Thom Maryland.
99% chance he comes back fine. Don't worry about it.
The other 1% chance is he will have killed another monarch.
And then we'll have another problem on
There's no saying. He's a serial killer with no trigger.
Listen, serial killer killing monarchs is like...
I know, that would be fucking sexy of them.
Yeah.
So Thom Thom will come back when he comes back. Yeah. Meanwhile, they go about getting everyone started. First, they go to Julian and Thera's wagon, where Julian is playing Snakes and Foxes with Oliver. This is the first time. Matt is like, oh, and by the way, Thera is actually Amathera, the Panarch of Terabon, for what that's worth. Nothing, apparently.
Yeah.
But he's like, yeah, we gotta get going. And, dispenses the news that Noal shows up again. Noal ran off and then shows up, and Matt's like, where has he fucking been? And I think that's it. Yep.
Oh, the dice start rolling in Matt's head again to end the chapter. But when are the dice not rolling in Matt's head these days?
Yeah, just we leave them as the chaos is rising around them, as the circus gets ready to start moving again.
To hit the road.
Hit the road, Jack.
And don't you come back.
Yeah, don't go back to Ebidar.
Don't go back.
So that is where
we leave Matrim.
We leave Matt. No longer our safe harbor from the more rancid points of Wheel of Time. Now we have to look to greener pastures. Eturald, Dobrain, Darlin, just the side characters are there to get us through it.
Yeah.
Reinharfor and
Nori. Gaul, Loyal.
Yeah.
Loyal's cute wife.
Grady and Niald.
Grady and Niald. And Grady's mean farm wife.
Gonna be slim pickings for favorite
Really
character.
are slim pickings. Yeah.
These days.
This chapter, I would say, I'm gonna say Valan Luca was my favorite character.
He is quite good. Mine was probably Noal for his fishcapades.
His fishcapades.
And least favorite character, well, can I choose the Seanchan as an institute? I guess it's probably just edgy on and for that truly heinous monologue about Thom.
Oh, that was rough to swallow.
Yeah.
There are a ton of characters to choose from in this chapter, so I guess I'll say Matt.
Yeah, well.
You've made it onto the least favorite character
You made
list,
it, Matt.
Matty boy.
Oh, Matt.
Congratulations on your descent into hell. And not in like a fun, sexy
Not in a
way.
fun Orpheus going into the underworld way, which you will undertake in a few books' time. Nope, just a sad way.
Boo. Hiss.
Boo, you whore.
Boo, you whore.
Well, everyone, that's the first couple chapters of Crossroads of Twilight.
Crossroads.
Thanks to Glenna Mackenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media. If you want to donate to our Ko-fi to sponsor some Everybody Hates Rand transcripts, because, Crossroads of Twilight needs to be transcribed. Or I should say our podcast about Crossroads of Twilight needs to be transcribed. Perhaps Crossroads of Twilight should no longer be in print, just a thought. But anyway, if you want to donate to the cause of keeping EHR accessible, our Ko-fi links are on our Twitter and Instagram.
Yes.
Do you have anything to add?
And in terms of supporting EHR, we are talking about an actually interesting book about Empire on our Patreon podcast, We Don't Watch Outlander. Talking about Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie, which has a lot to do with Empire and what it means to be complicit in Empire and what it means to fight back against Empire. And it is very cool and very gender TM. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can support us on Patreon. Now's a good time to join.
Patreon is going to be experiencing a slight overhaul in a couple months' time. If you are an existing Patreon, then keep an eye on your inbox, because we will send out a message forewarning you of the changes before they go into place.
Yeah.
Probably many of you won't be majorly affected, but there will be some like tier shifting and stuff like that. So just keep an eye on that, and of course if you want to join the Patreon, then just be forewarned that it will be changing a little bit in a couple of months.
Yeah, nothing too major, just like Emily said, some shifts to make it a little bit easier on our end. It's become quite a
little more reflective of the labor
Yeah.
we put into various things.
That's a good way to put it, Emily. You're so wise.
We're also, what precipitated this is that Sally's about to finish, not about to, she's got about half left of Knife of Dreams to blog about.
Yeah.
And then since we don't want her to blog about the last 3 books, we want her to just experience them live as we podcast about them.
Live slug reaction.
Yeah, live slug reaction to the last 3 Wheelie Time books. Then we were just like, oh, what are we going to do now? So there will still be content on that tier, is the short story, but no longer Wheel of Time blogs.
And you're welcome, because I think the blogs have become mostly me descending into madness. So,
as I did near the end of A Memory of Light.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
Projects you should never undertake. Okay, everyone. Do you have a sign-off?
Yeah, I don't know if this was ever like a sign-off when it happened, but at my niece's 3-year-old birthday party, this was 3 years ago.
But
so yeah,
this
this
a
may
great
be
time to relive
maybe
it.
a callback. We had rented a bounce house for her, and I was in the bounce house getting something out of the bounce house when my brother Perry deflated the bounce house on top
plug.
of me. I got trapped in the bounce house and then like laughing, but it was like legitimately quite scary. Like I didn't know how to get out, and there like wasn't a lot of air. Anyway, this last weekend I was at my niece's 6th birthday party, where she also had a bounce house, because, kids love bounce houses. And I somehow became the bounce house minder, where kids were also just like handing me trash. So I had like 2 fistfuls of gross Pop Rocks wrappers and half-eaten suckers. And I hear from inside the bounce house,
my 6-year-old niece telling all her kindergartner friends how my Aunt Sally once got trapped in a bounce house, and it was really funny.
Olivia Rodrigo chimes in with, God,
It's brutal out here. I was like, Liz, you traitor to the bloodline.
Oh, man.
Do anything for clout.
And I got such a good chuckle.
Ugh.
Okay, everyone. Have a good
Bye.
week. Bye.